All right. Now, this is the composition of the police council in Ghana. The vice president is a party man. It doesn't matter whether it's MPP or NDC. This is what we have given us, and this is what we work with. Now, the minister responsible for internal affairs, who is he? He's a party man. Then you have the Inspector General of Police appointed by the president. The president can dismiss him at any point in time, and therefore his loyalty is partial. It doesn't matter whether he was appointed by MPP or NDC. His loyalty is divided. Because he can be appointed today and dismissed tomorrow. And the worst scenario is when he is appointed to be acting capacity. It means I'm watching you. That is what it means. Now, the Attorney General is a party man. Then you have a lawyer nominated that one a representative of police, very well. 2 members of the police service appointed by the president. So who is that? Those people. Once they are appointed by the president, you know where they are coming from. Then 2 other members appointed by the president. So the whole composition of the police council is the president. And it's a party. Why will you give us this and think that we should be professional? You cannot. There's no way you can have a professional police service. It is party politics. And that is why we have become a chess in the hands of the government. Whether it's MPP or NDC, we are chess in their hands. And they are playing political games. That is why no party in opposition can trust the government, can trust the police. Because of what you do with us. And so once you move into opposition, you are scared that the same thing you do with us, the other party will do with us. So there is a need for constitutional amendment. And I propose that if we really want a long-term solution to this vigilantism, one major thing is that the president must be appointed for a fixed, the IGP must be appointed for a fixed term with approval of Parliament to exercise independent control. There's a need for an independent police service commission to replace the current police council. And grounds upon which an IGP can be removed should be spelled out so that the IGP's removal from office cannot be based on the whims and caprices of appointing authority. That the Minister of Interior can only give directives to the IGP in writing on matters of policy, but not as to how the IGP must do his work. This will make the police loyal to the Constitution instead of particular governments. Doc, these are part of the things in the book.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into them, but that was the first problem I had with the police service, where a regional commander orders me to do a particular thing that I found to be very unlawful. And when I refused it, everybody ganged up against me. The system in the police service ganged up against me and dismissed me.
In 2008?
In 2008.
Okay.
Interestingly, within that period, 2 months to 3 months into that time, I got a scholarship to do a PhD. And whilst I was going there, proceeding to Italy to do my PhD, I also appealed against that ruling by the police council. And then the police council, before I completed, they had then reduced that dismissal to a reduction in rank from superintendent to a DSP. And then, so by the time I returned, I was a DSP. And that's how I've been in this service. And then I rose to the current rank of Assistant Commissioner in 2017. And then 2019, another thing struck me. And that's what I will say about myself for now.
Okay, all right. So what happened in 2019?
2019, I had just returned from Haiti, where I was on appointments at the UN. And just before I returned, maybe a Thursday before, and I think that was about the 30th of October, thereabout, or 31st, thereabout, 31st October 2019, the then IGP, Mr. Pombuenu, called to ask where I was, and when I responded, he asked me to meet him in his office. Then he told me The BNI wanted to meet me. I said, well, I had not then officially reported to the police after my Haiti experience. So I could only do that Monday because I had a funeral. So that Monday I reported in my full uniform and then with the UN regalia and other things. And he called and asked me to, as an assistant commissioner of police, to accompany me to BNI then. And that's how everything changed.
So when you go to the BNI, what happened?
The BNI informed me then that they found my name on a WhatsApp group called Take Action Ghana. I went there with my lawyers. And I would like to put it on record that of all the 10 people who were involved in this case, I was the only person who had my lawyers present during the interrogation.
Okay.
The BNI will do everything to exclude your lawyers from interrogation room. And they tried to exclude my lawyers, but I insisted that I could not leave my lawyers until they had decided to detain me. And that was how come I got my lawyers into it. And before I continue, it is interesting to note that although the BNI would deny the presence of your lawyers during the interrogation, it is the outcome of this so-called interrogation that they will use against you in court. So for the 9 other people, they will say they confessed during interrogation. And yet, during all this confession, there was no other person but the BNI people. So in my case, they found it very difficult to tell me I confessed to one thing or the other. So going back to the issue, from the beginning, I knew it was witch hunting and I knew I was in for persecution. Because they had nothing to prove and yet they decided to detain me. And that was why, right from the beginning, I was unperturbed. I knew from the beginning that there was no way they were going to get any evidence against me because there was nothing. If I may just jump ahead, you come to observe that even though on the same platform, Take Action Ghana, there were lawyers, there were engineers, there were professors there, I was the only person singled out to be prosecuted. Interesting. I was the only person singled out to be prosecuted. And none other person was prosecuted apart from me. And yet, most of the people I've mentioned, professors and lawyers, some of whom are listening to me now, also paid money, sometimes some of them even in dollars, to support Dr. McPalm's, late Dr. McPalm's medical outreach program. But I was accused of paying $2,000, and yet others paid even dollars. And I can mention names except that I will not do them. If you read my book, you'll find evidence of how people paid so much, and yet they were left out. And that is evidence of the fact that I was in for persecution.
So thank you very much. You said this is the very first copy.
This is the very
that
first
gone
copy
out.
to you.
And I'm privileged. It's autographed too by you. I'm very privileged. So this is a 520-page, 28-chapter book.
Yes.
At which point in time did you decide to document this?
When I realized that my detention was imminent, I psyched myself and decided that I was going to use it as an opportunity to write my first book. I began to do keen observation of all the processes and procedures and the actions and inactions of the police, of the BNI, of the committal proceedings at Kaneshi Court, of the Attorney General's actions and inactions, their attempts to compromise people, including judges, whether it worked or not. But I've detailed a number of attempts that were made by the Attorney General's office to compromise the judges. And anybody who wants to know should go ahead and read the book. And I've explained copiously why there were attempts to compromise the judges. And also some of the actions of the courts itself, which I term judicial biases towards the accused persons. I've detailed all that for everybody to learn from.
So my question was, at which point did you decide to document? When you realized that
my detention was imminent, and then I started writing as soon as I left the BNI custody.
How long were you there?
1 week. From Monday to Friday, I left the BNI custody.
To where?
To the ministry's police station.
Okay.
Now, remember that there is a world of difference between detention at the BNI and then detention at the police.
What's the difference?
The difference is that at the police, much as you may not like certain things that may happen to you at the police station, there are certain positive aspects. For instance, the police will always provide you, and that's why sometimes when I listen to some of the things that happen to Democracy Hub, I'm surprised. Because that is not what we do. But at the end of the day, they will give you access to, even if not your own phone, the police phone to use to call your relatives, to interact with them in the presence. Oh yes, when I was there, not only me, I can testify to the fact that Dr. McPalm was giving phone to talk to his family. His family visited him, but these things you cannot get them at the BNI.
Okay.
We have even my first news file that I watched. That was the first news file after my arrest. I think it was the Saturday after the 4th November. I was in BNI police custody when I watched it, because you have TV there, and there's radio, and you can just listen to some of the current things that are happening. And you could meet your family, and they could visit you. They could bring you food. Except that the police will make sure that the food does not contain anything untoward, and they will make you eat part of the food. These are all procedures that are documented in the police station. And so for police, you can give this to them. At the BNI, you don't have access to these ones. And sometimes for your family to see you is terrible. When they see you once, it is difficult for them to see you again. And they have to fight, and I mean in quotes, fight in order to get you.
So you say that you started writing at the ministry's police station.
I started documenting things.
Okay.
Anytime I had time and I had access to any paper, I scribbled something.
Okay.
And I continued and I continued. By the time I was sent to the IGP's custody, which was like more or less a house arrest, I had the time.
Explain that. IGP custody, what does it mean? Now, there's a cell at the IGP's office.
Now, at a point in time, I complained about the reason for moving to ministry's police station was that I complained about the manner, the ill treatment, the fact that they will not allow you to receive visitors, the fact that they will not allow you access to your family and also to speak to your family, and a number of things at the BNI. So I complained to through my lawyers to the magistrate at the district court. So the magistrate court decided to remand me to the police custody or IGP's custody. At that time, the colonel amongst us was also detained at the military facility.
Okay.
And therefore, it was easier for us to argue that, well, just like the colonel, I should also be detained at a police facility. That's how come I moved into a police facility. But before then, the police facility wasn't ready. So I was sent to the ministry's police station, and within 3 weeks or so, the facility was ready.
So when is a police facility, what does it mean? A house?
A kind of apartment where they will keep you under guard.
Okay.
You don't have the freedom to move out, but you have the freedom to move around within your apartment. And there's always a police guard there. Nobody can come in unless you permit it, permit the person. Your family could visit you and go back, etc., etc. That's what I mean.
Here in Accra?
Here in Accra.
Okay.
It didn't exist until my case.
Okay.
It didn't exist. If it existed many years ago...
Was it because of your rank?
Because there was a precedence with the military.
Okay.
Maybe we also appealed, and once the order was given by the judge at the time, the police had to do that.
There was an incident that also occurred during your trial. Your insistence on wearing your uniform and the decision that you should not appear in court in your uniform. What was that about?
I love this question so much, and I get a bit emotional when I'm talking about it. Doc, I was arrested in my uniform. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was interrogated in my uniform together with a UN beret. When they decided to detain me, I was in uniform. They stripped my uniform. They stripped me of my uniform and kept the uniform. That was on Monday.
When is that they strip you? What do you mean?
What I mean
they
is
made you
that
take it off.
They made me take it off and gave me some underwear, which was something. I don't want to go there now. And so I was almost half naked, and then I was placed in custody for 3 days. That was Monday, Tuesday. Then Wednesday morning, I woke up and I was informed, prepare for court. I wore that same underwear, went to the reception there, and the only uniform or dress available was the uniform. Now remember, the BNI were not professional enough to take me to my house to change my uniform. That was their responsibility. Or they did not ask my wife to bring me clothes. So when they asked me to dress up, I dressed up in the uniform and the beret.
Because those were the only clothes you had. Okay.
Exactly. In their full glare. They watched me board the vehicle. They sat by me, sent me to court. And then when I returned from court, they now accused me of wearing uniform to court. That was what happened. But you see, that's one of the interesting things about our criminal justice system. You are unable to speak. And therefore, all the noise, and I'm using that word, noise, by the Attorney General's department, including their officials, that I intentionally decided to wear that uniform, they told me not to wear it. Those are the fabrications of the Attorney General's office. And I've mentioned names that are associated with it. You see, so you are prosecuted, and you cannot speak until maybe 3 or 4 years into the case before you are called upon to open your defense. And yet all this while, propaganda by the Attorney General is going on, and you have no mouth to speak.
So you were in the IGP's custody,
yes,
the apartment,
yes,
with police guard and everything.
Yes.
So you couldn't go out, but your family could visit you.
My family could visit me and leave.
Okay, and that's when you continued.
That was when I wrote a lot. By the time I left the IGP's custody, I was arrested in November.
November of 2019.
November of 2019. And then I was released on 24th of January 2020. So within this period, I had written over 100 pages.
100 pages?
Yes, because within that period, a lot of things happened. So, and I had my memory right within the period. So I was documenting everything, looking back and recollecting everything. And so, like I said, by the time judgment was given, I had written 26 out of the 29 chapters. And even the 29th and the that was 27th, 28, and then 24th chapter, I had even done the framework, only waiting for the judgment, which I knew was going to be much ado about nothing, and therefore that's the title for it. And then also whether there was coup or it was something that was orchestrated. Okay.
So you were in custody from November of 2019 to January of 2020.
2020.
Okay. And so you were released in January 2020?
Yes, please.
To go home?
To go home. I was released on self-recognizance bail, and that's another chapter.
Why did it take that long?
It will interest you that I stand to be corrected because I'm on national TV, but I stand to be corrected. I am arguably the first person ever accused of high treason and then granted self-recognizance bail. And that tells you a story, because after the judge listened to us, all the filings and everything, and then that of the Attorney General, you realize that, in my opinion, these people do not have a case against this person. But he had no authority to release me except to say, okay, I can admit him to bail. And that even angered them the more. When you read the story of the reaction of the Attorney General's office, And I know that was the reason why they eventually decided to punish me for it and went in for nolle prosequi to arrest me again.
When did this happen?
That was around, was it March, April 2021?
When you were on bail?
When I was on bail. To arrest me again in order to grant me bail with sureties to be justified.
Oh.
Okay. So unknown to people, I could read into it and say that this was the reason why they did that. Because you see, the bail condition for the self-recognizance was that I should report to the police for 3 months, police and BNI for 3 months, and then to the BNI for another 3 months. And after that, it meant I was not going to report to any of them again, but to go to court and come back. And I saw Attorney General very uncomfortable with that condition. And yet it should have indicated to them that this person you cannot jail because you have no case against them. But they continued what they wanted to do.
Okay. So you were rearrested?
Yes.
And were fresh charges or new charges leveled against you?
Interestingly, let me put it this way. In law, I'm not a lawyer, but I've come very far, so I understand it. When there is a nolle prosequi, you cannot question the Attorney General for it.
Yes.
He decides, and you cannot question him. But in law, it implies a lot of things. It implies that maybe there is no evidence, so the people will be left to go, or there is a new evidence, and for which reason they could be rearrested or something. Now, in our case, we were facing treason felony, which was a lower crime than the one that we were subsequently slapped with, which was high treason. After the nolle prosequi, we were slapped with high treason. But when we went to court, the interesting thing was this. Attorney General told the court and all of us that he had no fresh evidence, although he has escalated the charge to the highest crime on the land. He had no evidence. The charge sheet was the same. The charge sheet only changed. The facts of the case remained the same. No new disclosures. And when the judge asked him to give us new disclosures, he said, no, there was no need for new disclosure. We were going to depend on the same piece of fact. And that tells you that it was meant to frustrate us, and it was a pure persecution. Another interesting thing about our nolle prosequi, we were never informed, we were never given any notification. Under normal circumstances, when you have a nolle prosequi, it may happen in the court, or you could notify the people. We were never notified. We were only asked to write a new statement. And when we refused to write, they sent that to court and then gave us a new charge. And even after the new charge, we did not have that nolle prosequi until our lawyers had to apply for it. So that was also another abuse of the procedures in court. So throughout our trial, those were some of the things. I'm not a lawyer, but many lawyers listening to me appreciate the fact that when you have a nolle prosequi, we should be notified. Whether in court or outside court, we should be notified. And when you decide to escalate charges against your accused persons, at least in court, you have to do new disclosures. And that's what it implies. Or you have no business doing that at all. Otherwise, we have the right to also read meanings into whatever you say.